Hi, welcome to Healing Humanity. My name is Dina. I know I've taken a little break and I'm sorry about that, but I was becoming too much for my own self to bear. I was I was feeling like it was just a constant negativity, and that's not my true nature. My true nature is not one to complain. I like to see the positive side of things no matter what it is. And when I found myself like in a constant battle with that, and I was having a hard time getting out of it. So I had to take a break for a little bit. So I hope you understand. But today, somebody asked, how does you know how does healing your body, mind, and soul have anything to do with Jesus or with God? And I'll step back and I'll sort of start from the beginning of all of this, right? So, however many years ago now, maybe 9 or 10 years, I'm not sure what, um, I'm not sure of the time frame because so much happened during that period that I really lost track of a lot of time. I couldn't put it on a timeline for you right now, but my mom was diagnosed with cancer and she was given 6 months to live. And when you know that, it is a tremendous like shock to your system. You My mom didn't have the best habits. She smoked cigarettes most of her adult life, and so you always knew that it was coming, but you didn't know just how badly it was going to affect you until it did. And so that took some processing for me to even talk to her about it, let alone be there for her. Because I was mad. I was mad that she allowed this to happen to herself. I was mad that this was an inevitability, and I was mad that there seemed to be nothing that she was going to do to fight it. And as much as I wanted her to, she didn't. So it's hard for me to even talk about it now. I feel a little choked up. So we had to absorb the fact, and I had to absorb the fact that the strained relationship with my mom and I was coming to an end, and it had to be different for me. And I hoped for her as well. So I had to come to terms with a lot of things. Her and I didn't always see eye to eye. Most of the time we didn't. So I had to really come to terms with a lot of things in a very short amount of time so I could be there. And that was difficult. That was really hard. How does that have to do with body, mind, and soul? Well, during that period, during my mom's illness, my daughter, my oldest daughter, my son in law, her husband, and my ex husband became severely addicted to methamphetamines to the point where they were they were not able to come back from that easily. It took a really, really long time, um, even to the point of years, right? Um, it's a disgusting uh, drug that just grabs hold of you and doesn't let go, and it takes people down a spiral. And I see people online posting these videos about these people on methamphetamines and acting all in these strange ways, and I can tell you that I saw some of those strange ways through my own family members, and it was terrifying. It was angering. It was frightening. Um, we've as somebody watching that, you feel really lost because you don't know what to do to help them. And so the only thing that I could do at that time was to protect the ones that weren't doing the drugs, and which were my grandkids. So I wound up taking custody of the grandkids, um, and that all should have been fine because my goal was to keep them until the kids, my kids, my daughter and my son-in-law were able to get themselves straight again. Were able to get themselves out of this mess. I was not in a position where I could financially send them to rehab, and even if I had, I saw what my ex-husband had gone through with some of the things that he had trouble with, and the rehab was not super successful unless you are mentally wanting and willing to go through it. And so I knew that they had to do it. I knew that I could force issues and stand strong to make sure that they followed the right protocol to get themselves healthy again. But it was a battle. It was a huge battle, and it wasn't their fault. It is, but it isn't, right? The first puff is their fault. After that, it's just you're hooked. Um, and if it's not the first, it's within the first couple. It just, like I said, it grabs hold of your life, your body, and just doesn't let it go. So then that should have all been enough, right? Well, it wasn't. At that same time, getting near the end of my mother's cancer, she was just about to pass, and I'm trying to spend as much time as I could with her, but I had the kids, and I was worried and trying to get my daughter and son-in-law and my ex-husband to do life a little bit differently, and I had a lot of support, emotional support during this whole period. And then I got sick. Now, I personally had been sick before. I had cancer the time before, and overcame it. Didn't think that anything of it. Fought it and won. Right. And I always had very big jobs. So, like, the first time I got sick, I told the doctor, I said, I don't have time for this. And she said, you don't have time not to deal with this. So this time I knew that I had to deal with it, but it was going to be a step bigger than what I had gone through the first time. So this time I had to go through radiation. I had to take it more seriously. I had to find a way to heal myself through this, because nobody was going to do that for me, right? So I always had big jobs, like I said. And so during this period, I was at the top of my career in my state, and it was going really well. I loved it. I loved what I did. I loved the people I worked with and the people I worked for. And I loved the communities that I was managing and was a part of. It just was wonderful. It was a great time in my life, honestly. But because of all of this, because of taking the kids, because of my mom, because of my own cancer, now having to go through treatments and so forth, I felt like things were starting to topple pretty fast. And, I stayed working, and I did not allow my communities to know anything that was going on with me. I'm sure that they could tell something was up. I was wrapped in a blanket most of the time because I was in radiation that morning. No, it was freezing, but they never asked, and I never shared it with them. So I walked through that period alone. But what was really hard was I was, waking up really early, taking the kids to a sitter so they could take the sitter could take them to daycare, and then in the evenings, because I was working 50 or more hours a week. In the evenings, a sitter would come and sit with the kids until I could get home. And it just was a constant, like, stressful rotation. It just wasn't working. And when you get sick, the illness just completely stops everything. It makes you rethink everything. So during that process of rethinking everything, I also wanted to make sure that my soul was protected, that I was protected, because I knew, growing up, I went to church, and I knew about Jesus, and I knew about God, and I knew about the salvation for my soul, or the potential salvation for my soul. And I wanted to make sure that I had an in, that I was okay if I wasn't going to be physically okay, that my soul was going to be protected.